is it? It's almost adventure time! Fionna and Cake are making their own series debut this week, and WhitneyVision is returning in full force to cover the series that brought about a NerdWire renaissance. Seriously, this franchise is so special to me. One of my favorite memories is going to an advanced screening of Come Along With Me with my now husband, and that finale more or less saved NerdWire during one of its toughest periods. Then, when I had to restart on WhitneyVision, Distant Lands was there to help me ease the transition. Fittingly, now that I'm a solo artist again, my old pal Adventure Time is there to help me reinvigorate this channel. I also want to quickly thank all of you fans for standing by with patience and encouragement. I really appreciate all the support. But before I start happy crying, let's get to the topic at hand. One last theory video in Under the Wire about Adventure Time. So come along with me as I theorize how this series is going to secretly tie into the primary Adventure Time universe, bring closure to the epic tragedy of Ice King and Betty, and possibly bring back two of the biggest villains of the series. It's been a while since Adventure Time was on the air, so let's start by getting everyone back up to speed on our gals Fionna and Cake, and their connection to the Ice King. Introduced in Season 3 as gender-swapped Finn and Jake fanfiction written by the Ice King, Fionna and Cake are adventurers in a magical and mathematical universe that mirrors Ooh. But although most believe that these characters are figments of the Ice King's slowly deteriorating brain juice, it's hinted to the audience several times throughout the series that Fionna and Cake are real living beings from another universe. The Ice King is seemingly picking up magical broadcast signals about their adventures when he sleeps, and based on the Fionna and Cake trailers, he's not the only one. Mundane Fionna is out there dreaming of the Ice King, and elsewhere post-Crown but pre-Ice King Simon is seemingly penning stories of Fionna and Cake and attributes them to a yet-to-exist Ice King. It appears we've got a mishmash of multiversal and temporal interference affecting these characters in their dreams. So what's the deal? Why are these characters dreaming of each other, and what's responsible? Well, I actually think we've got most of the hints we need to solve this mystery planted in the original series already. One of the bigger ones was even seeded back in the finale. You see, in the OG series, Ice King was receiving his visions of Fionna and Cake by way of some sort of red magic. Now, this could just be his Wish Crown's gem giving him a case of wizard eyes, but more likely, I think we're dealing with a certain red deity of chaos, Golb. Conveniently, Golb's current state was also created through the Wish Crown's magic. While Betty couldn't erase Golb from existence, she was able to fuse with the big evil primordial demon baby by wishing she had the power to keep Simon safe. After successfully fusing with Golb, GOLBetty took her new form back to interdimensional space. Interdimensional space that likely exists on a plane accessible by dreams. If you remember, Golb's first appearance is in the episode Puhoi, and the Pillow World Finn visits in that episode is paradoxically implied to be both a real universe and a dream that Finn was experiencing. This leads me to believe that Golb inhabits an interdimensional space much like Prismo's time room, and that dreams can occasionally interact with said space. Prismo himself also happens to be comprised of magic linked to a dreaming man, so it seems dreams hold powerful multiversal properties in AT lore. I believe this magic is a two-way street, and Betty, or GOLBetty, has been using divine dream magic to transcend space and time to bring Simon back to her, and part of that plan includes connecting him with Fionna and Cake. Like Doctor Strange in Infinity War, Betty sees one way to win. So, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, she's gonna use the power of dreams to overcome chaos. If you revisit the Fionna and Cake episodes with this theory in mind, it actually seems plausible. Admittedly, their first adventure, Season 3's Fionna and Cake, is the hardest to fit into this theory as it's mostly a fun gimmick episode that was retroactively built into being intricately tied to AT's multiversal lore. Based on the other Fionna and Cake Adventure Time episodes, my assessment is that the fanfiction story that Ice King writes in this episode is mostly fictitious. But the characters Fionna, Cake, Prince Gumball, and Lord Monochromacorn are all inspired by his dreams. When Fionna, Cake, and Lord Monochromacorn romantically fawn over him, that's purely Ice K fiction. But it tracks with his crown-induced delusions. Elsewhere in the series, we learn that the Ice King's creepy antics are all perversions of his love for Betty by the magic of his crown. In Season 3's Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2, Simon refers to Betty as his princess, which later manifests into an obsession with hunting down princesses to force them to fall in love with him, subconsciously hoping to find his way back to his fiancée Betty. This leads me to a harrowing possibility. If Betty is using Golb's magic to break the laws of time, is it possible that her SOS messages to Simon via his subconscious mind were part of what drove him to become the Ice King? We know that magic goes hand in hand with madness and sadness, but we also see that Golb's magic taints everything it touches. So could that have played a role in warping Simon's mind? Did Golb's chaos twist Betty's messages to Simon and corrupt his desire to reunite with his princess? If there is a link, there's certainly a tragic irony to this, as the crown's magic is what made Betty flee Simon in the first place. The next mention of Fionna and Cake we have is in Season 4's King Worm, where Finn and Jake run into the Ice King in their dreamscape. Here he calls them Fionna and Cake, likely because that's who he primarily interacts with while he's asleep. This is more evidence that dreams are key to this Fionna and Cake mystery. In Season 5's Bad Little Boy, Marceline hijacks his Fionna and Cake storytime with her own addition to the saga. After she frees the princesses and the Ice King is alone again, he says, "I know you're out there somewhere. I just haven't figured out a way to get to you. I will. I will." This episode introduces the idea that Fionna and Cake are more than fiction. And while we don't know their importance to Ice King or Betty, we as an audience are clued into the Ice King's desire to find them in real life. Perhaps this directive to find them was implanted by GOLBetty. In that same season, in the episode Mystery Dungeon, the Ice King takes a group of adventurers on a quest to bring his Fionna and Cake fanfiction to life, in an attempt to summon Fionna and Cake's universe into his reality. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, but Neptr comforts him by telling him that he can also find Fionna in his imagination space. While in his imagination space, a Neptr-voiced Fionna says some very interesting things in regards to our theory. Firstly, this Fionna tells Ice King that dreams are as real as waking life, and then tells him that their worlds will surely meet. On the surface, this just appears to be Neptr helping his papa imagine Fionna. But interestingly, this scene mirrors the Ice King coming to Betty's aid in the show's finale. Could these words also be Betty communicating from across the thresholds of consciousness? Is his developing quest to manifest Fionna and Cake a result of Betty's messages finally latching onto his mind hole? Season 6's The Prince Who Wanted Everything is where things start to get real weird. At the end of Lumpy Space Princess's own entry in the Fionna and Cake saga, she includes what amounts to a summoning spell so that she can manifest her true love Lumpy Space Prince into her universe. Note that the Ice King is entirely on board with the idea of intersecting with the Fionna and Cake reality. Then we have Season 9's Fionna and Cake and Fionna, which gives us the biggest clue we currently have about the connection between Fionna, Cake, and Ice King. Not only do we see that red magic mainlining Fionna and Cake adventures into Ice K's sleepy noggin, but we also get some interesting lore revealed by a Fionna impersonator / cosplayer. This old lady somehow receives a broadcast signal of a Fionna and Cake episode, which she records onto a VHS. Not only does this confirm that Fionna and Cake aren't fictional, but it confirms that someone or something is attempting to broadcast Fionna and Cake's adventures to Oo. In Come Along With Me, we have my favorite bit of connective tissue. In an attempt to break Betty out of her trance, Ice King sings her the same romantic song that the fake Prince Gumbald sang to Fionna in their debut episode. On the surface, this just seems like a way to fit in a Fionna and Cake reference in an episode jam-packed with Easter eggs, but with this theory in mind, I'm wondering if this song was originally implanted into Ice King's subconscious by GOLBetty. This is one of the last things he says to Betty before she becomes GOLBetty, so I'm wondering if this inspires her to share it back with him when she breaks away from the constraints of space and time. A song of love shared between two star-crossed wizards in a temporal loop. Notably, the last lines of this song are, "I won't let anything in this world keep us apart," and this fully encapsulates the relationship of the pair. They've both raised heaven and hell to master unwieldy magics in an attempt to be together. To me, if we're reopening their story in some way with the Fionna and Cake series, it would make sense that GOLBetty is just another temporary obstacle keeping them apart. So where and how do Fionna and Cake fit into GOLBetty's plan? My best guess is that it has to do with the Enchiridion, the tome that has the secrets of the multiverse hidden within it. A multiverse that's often depicted in a similar manner as the geometric shapes floating around Golb's head. By turning the sword on the book's spine and inserting the 9 gems of powers from the Princesses of Oo, the Enchiridion's user has access to every single corner of the multiverse, and can travel via time portal to any destination in space-time. This could explain why some appearances of Fionna in the main series have her holding the book. Betty's message might mean that she needs Simon and Fionna to get access to this book so that they can reach her. But getting the book ain't gonna be a walk through the Candy Kingdom. I don't think it's a coincidence that the villain featured in the new show's trailer is Chaos Crimson, just like Golb. Shout out to my boy MT. Looks like your color trigger theory also holds true and ooh. Part of me is wondering if this is an agent of Golb, or worse, a rogue avatar of GOLBetty that wishes to eliminate Betty's hold over the god. Prior to their fusion, Golb was described as being pure bonkers. But what if Golb's fusion with Betty also gave Golb's evil consciousness, actual thought, awareness, and intention? But this figure could also be another evil we've yet to address, the Lich. The Lich calls himself the last scholar of Golb, and considering that there are infinite versions of him spread across the universe, it's likely that Golb's student would also be seeking GOLBetty much like Simon. Not to free Betty, but to free Golb, or even potentially absorb his power. Being that Fionna and Cake are counterparts to Finn and Jake, two heroes designed by fate to reincarnate and defeat the Lich, part of me thinks Fionna, alongside the older Finn we see in the trailer, will have to fulfill their part of the prophecy and battle the Lich as Simon attempts to rescue Betty. Aside from all this, I want to note that reportedly fans asked Ice King's voice actor Tom Kenny about the series at a convention many months ago. According to these fans, Kenny said that his work in Fionna and Cake is some of the most emotional acting he's ever done. This leads me to believe that we're getting a true conclusion to one of the most heartbreaking threads Adventure Time has ever given us: Simon and Betty. Based on Kenny's answer though, I think the ending might be more tragic than we're ready for. So that's my last minute theory, but what are y'all expecting in this Adventure Time spinoff? Stay tuned to WhitneyVision for episode breakdowns of Fionna and Cake. I'm aiming for them to go up either every Thursday or Friday for the runtime of the series, this week included. I'll also be going back to cover all the Owl House breakdowns I've missed, along with announcing a few new projects that have been slowly in the works. If you want to support WhitneyVision as we ramp back up, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Stay mathematical, and I'll see you soon for Fionna and Cake.